Cyber threat trends indicate that greater communication between states can collectively help agencies across the country better defend against the onslaught of attacks. I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and here to talk with us today about a defense strategy that puts an emphasis on community as a key cybersecurity defense measure is Randy Rose, Senior Director of Operations and Intelligence at the Center for Internet Security. Randy, thank you for joining us. And let me start with asking you, the Center for Internet Security is a big proponent of the defense in-depth security approach. Can you explain what that approach really entails in today's environment?
Absolutely. Yeah, the Center for Internet Security's approach is a little different, I think, than a lot of other organizations. And certainly the listeners and audience here are probably well familiar with the idea of defense in depth. But as you said, ours is really focused on community. And so it's, the idea of defense in depth is predicated on making sure that the humans and data about the humans is secure at the end of the day. And we get there by focusing first on community. It's really sharing across all the different stakeholders across the board, right? We're all in this fight together. So there's a lot of great things that we're seeing in our environments that we can share with other people so they can get ahead of the problem. The second layer is best practices. Best practices are, it's a common term, but they're best practices for a reason. So we don't want to be learning the same lessons that somebody else has already learned and learn them the hard way. So we implement best practices that are there because they work. Our third layer is risk management, and we really focus on risk management as a continuous process. It's not a one and done deal. Risk management is really about understanding the threats and vulnerabilities as they pertain to your environment in a continuous fashion, going back and reevaluating in a constant, continuous manner, maintaining that diligence from a risk perspective. Our fourth layer is focused on the network. So if you think of ingress egress points, all attacks today are traversing a network. And so if you can detect those at a network choke point and potentially put some protections and defense mechanisms in place there, they have a wider impact across multiple endpoints and users within that network environment. And finally, our fifth layer is device protection. A lot of attacks that we historically have been able to detect at the network level, we're not able to do anymore because of advanced techniques, encryption technology, things like that. And so being able to observe what is normal behavior at the device layer and detect the things that are abnormal based off your baseline and put some mitigations in place at that level and essentially real-time response, that's a huge bang for the buck.
Well, I know that there's certainly a lot of opportunities and challenges around information sharing. In what ways can states, and I would argue counties and municipalities as well, and their agencies lean on community to better defend against sophisticated cyber threats?
I think a big part of what you just said, right, in states and counties and local governments, that's the key, right? That's the community. We are all in this fight together. And adversaries they're not picking and choosing individual organizations because of the type of government that they are or the type of organization that they are. At the end of the day, they have a strategic objective that they're going after. And all of us are victims or potential victims and potential targets to those criminal organizations and state actors. And the sophistication of the attacks is just increasing with each passing year. So it's really in everybody's interest, right? There's the saying that a rising tide raises all boats. It's in everybody's interest to share with each other because it's the collective defense model through community sharing is what's going to get us over that hurdle. It's going to get us to a place where we're actually protecting against not just the threats of today, but future threats.
And can you share some examples of how you've seen states and local government agencies really kind of come together to develop best practices and also share threat intelligence?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of the bread and butter of the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, as well as the Elections Infrastructure Information Sharing and Analysis Center, or the MSISAC and the EIISAC, both of which are part of the Center for Internet Security. So our model is really, working across various sectors, basically state, local, tribal, and territorial governments below you can think of as taxpayer-funded organizations below the federal level. So we work with these organizations to really implement ways that we can streamline threat information sharing as quickly as possible. We're doing some things in an automated fashion, getting malicious indicators out via a number of different mechanisms that organizations can literally ingest in near real time and put into proactive defensive models, different tools within their environment. Again, we talked about network and device protection. So putting that stuff in where it makes sense in their own environment in near real time and automating a lot of that activity. So we're doing defense at machine speed rather than at human speed. The other thing that we're seeing is more organizations are understanding that the threat landscape has evolved, that because we're all likely to be victims or targets at different times, there's no shame in sharing information. So more states are willing to, and not just states, everybody is more willing to share the things that they're seeing, the threats that are actually impacting them. They recognize it's not a bad look for you, right? Let's get the information out and help protect our peers. So we're seeing more and more information sharing really across the board, and not just the information, the threat-related information in the incidents, but mitigation information. What did I do to respond to this event? That's allowing other organizations that may not be as resourced or as equipped to be able to put some, basically to save some time, to put some things in place very, very quickly, whether that's leveraging outside organizations like our organization or an outside vendor to do incident response quickly, or to be able to respond very, very rapidly, knowing what to look for, where to look for it, and how to mitigate that in real time.
Well, I definitely appreciate your point about sharing mitigation information, not just threat intelligence. In light of all that, what other recommendations would you offer state and local leaders to really get continued traction in implementing defense in-depth security?
Well, the first thing I would do is find your community, right? I definitely recommend looking at our approach, starting with number one, which is the community model. Find the organizations that are similar to you in risk profile and connect with them. And if you don't know who those organizations are, then reach out to us and we will put you in contact with them. I certainly recommend any state, local, tribal, or territorial government that's not already an MSISAC member, reach out to us, get connected to us. We have a wealth of resources, all of which are free for you to use. So we work in concert with the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency to provide resources at no cost to SLTTs. And certainly, we talked a little bit about being resource strapped. There's no SLTT organization out there today that would not benefit from somebody else picking up the bill, right? So, and not just from a financial perspective, but also footing the bill in terms of providing real human resources and expertise to help get their arms around this problem. And that's where the MSISAC can come in and help. And I always recommend to organizations when I talk to them, like, I don't know the things that you need in your environment. Right? I don't know all the gaps and seams that you have, but I do know that we're all facing the same problem. And there are services that we can provide that can help you spend your next dollar wisely. So at a minimum, talk to us, figure out what you can get from us for free or in partnership with the organizations that we work with. And don't spend a single dollar on something that you can get from us for free. Spend that dollar to fill your specific need.
A great point. Well, Randy Rose, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing some of your insights on defense in depth and the importance of community in helping state and local agencies just get a better handle on their cybersecurity strategies.
Thank you. It's great to be here.